I played a lot of Black Ops Cold War in the early stages of Season 3 and made the following impressions prior to recent changes to the Swiss K31. I have not used the Swiss K31 post-patch, but I still believe that most of my impressions will still be valid to some degree. In this video I will also give my thoughts on the PPSH-41, which to my knowledge has not received any balance changes thus far. The Swiss K31 is an interesting weapon, as my initial impressions were pretty negative, but the more I used it, the more I started to like it. Initially, I didn't like that I was consistently getting hit markers on my first shots and struggled to get in second shots to finish off opponents before they retaliated and killed me. This was extremely frustrating. I decided to talk to a friend about my early experience with the Swiss K31, and I just wasn't enjoying using it, but wanted to give the weapon a serious try. The suggestion from this conversation was that the Swiss K31 had been balanced to encourage the player to go for headshots rather than aim for the body, which I thought was a rather interesting idea. I took this information and began to aim for headshots all the time rather than taking body shots. When I stopped using the Swiss K31, my headshot ratio was roughly 60% from about 500 eliminations. The effect of going for headshots massively increased my kills per game, my guaranteed kills, rather than dealing 99% of damage and laughing in my face with another hit marker, and also massively increased my overall accuracy and my ability to go for headshots with other weapons. The more I used the Swiss K31, the more I began to like it. I think this was very much linked to the attachments that I unlocked, as I found that attachments made a big difference to the weapon's viability in gunfights. A key attachment in my opinion is the increased fire rate attachment, as it enables the gun to fire a follow-up second round that's slight bit faster and just enough to finish off those players that you would previously have been killed by. Once you unlock the Tiger Barrel, the Swiss K31 turns into a different beast. With the extra damage that this attachment provides, the Swiss K31 becomes a one-shot kill to most areas of the body. As my friend put it, it's a cheat attachment, as it truly transforms the way the weapon can be effectively used. With the Tiger Barrel attachment, the Swiss K31 honestly becomes a bit overpowered. I am not a good sniper, but I went into matches averaging 1 KD without the Tiger Barrel attachment and about 3 to 4 KD using the Tiger Barrel. It makes that much of a difference, and it's clearly why this attachment is banned in league play matches. The Swiss K31 feels good to use. The ADS speed is pretty swift and the default scope is decent. I think some players are going to love this weapon and others will hate it. It's all going to depend on how you play with it and also what attachments you have unlocked or equipped for it. Overall, I decided it was good, providing that the higher fire rate and Tiger Barrel attachments are used in conjunction with other attachments. I think that all Cold War players should try the Swiss K31, and just as I did, only accept headshot kills. I truly feel that by doing this my aim and accuracy improved, while I was also made much more aware of which part of enemies I was hitting. This translates to any gun you decide to use, so give it a try and see what you think. When the PPSH-41 was announced for Season 3, I guessed that I'd really enjoy playing with this weapon, and sure enough, I was correct. The PPSH-41 is a rapid-fire monster with low to moderate recoil at short range, but high recoil at medium to long range. At least that's how it feels to me. Unlike the Swiss K31, the PPSH-41 is great without any attachments, but can be improved by using them, of course. My initial thoughts on the PPSH-41 was that it was very overpowered and needed to be tweaked a lot with a weapon balancing patch. But I quickly realised that this was because I was getting into short range encounters where this gun is an absolute beast. As soon as I started to take on other players at medium to long range, you quickly realise that the recoil amount, recoil pattern, damage fall off and other weapon characteristics make this weapon much harder to use for these gunfights, and you will often end up losing them. For standard game modes, the PPSH-41 is decent fun to use, but I'd recommend getting in as close as possible to your targets before firing. I tried using the PPSH-41 in League play and decided it wasn't a great option. As I've already mentioned, the PPSH-41 is great at short range, so if you're trying to capture a control point or hold a hard point up close, the PPSH-41 can be great for this. But trying to take on an AR player is a losing battle. Using it in S&D was a complete failure, as I often had long range engagements, which I obviously lost. I concluded that the versatility of the AK-74U is much better for these gunfights and League play in general. The AK-74U can obviously be used against AR players and used in a variety of different modes, unlike the PPSH-41. I would highly recommend using the PPSH-41 in standard matches, as it is very satisfying and fun to use, but I would not recommend using it for competitive game modes like S&D or League play matches due to its limited effective range. I'm going to get straight to the point. Diesel is a good map, maybe a great map for 6v6, but an awful map for 3v3. I will start with why I think it's a good map for 6v6 first, and then discuss why I think 3v3 is just bad. Firstly, I really like the aesthetic design of this map. It's quite different from the other maps in this game, and therefore stands out from the rest of the maps in the roster. Diesel is usually a fast-paced map with lots of action and little waiting around for gunfights. There are many spots in Diesel which can be used for sniping or camping, so in a 6v6 setting there is usually one player per game who is either sniping or camping in these areas of the map. Thankfully, there is always someone in 6v6 who is countering these players, and thus the map doesn't end up unbalanced or slow to play. In fact, sniping is great on Diesel because there are always a couple of players who are taking long-range gunfights across the map. There are always a couple of players sprinting around trying to get into the opposing team's spawns and get in behind the snipers, so there is a constant back and forth around the map, which creates a really nice map flow for most of the time. In objective-based modes, the capture points have been placed in areas which promote lots of close gunfights and many angles of attack, and regardless of which game mode I'm playing, it's always been fun to play on Diesel. 80% of the time, matches are pretty balanced and fun, but on occasions you end up on the slightly weaker team. Be prepared to get spawn flanked and spawn trapped very quickly. These matches are not fun to play at all because on the weaker team you are going to get destroyed, and on the stronger team it's just like playing against bots because players rarely get out of the spawn traps on this map, so it's not rewarding regardless of which side of this you're on. Diesel for 3v3 is awful, and I doubt anyone could convince me otherwise. As I've mentioned previously, there are many spots within this map which are great camping spots. In a 6v6 setting, someone will be attacking these areas and evening out the playing field. But in a 3v3 situation, these spots are a goldmine for pesky campers. As there are so many spots to check, it's advantageous to stay static and just wait for the other players to walk out in front of you. There are simply too many angles and corners to watch with low player counts, so most kills are not gun-on-gun fights and are most likely kills from the side, from behind you, or just getting shot from a camping spot because you were checking a different one of the billion other spots they could have been in. Even in the less campy 3v3 matches, the number of gunfights per game feels very low, which clearly shows the map was made for a larger player count, so you spend more time running around trying to find players than actually having gunfights. I honestly think Diesel should be taken out of the 3v3 rotation. It's just so slow, boring and campy to play. Yamantau as a map is fine. It's not bad, but it's not good either. As with Diesel, I think Yamantau stands out from the rest of the maps in Black Ops Cold War, plus it doesn't really play like any of the other maps in Cold War either. The map plays in a mostly predictable fashion, which is great because you are rarely shot in the back or when you are unaware where shots are coming from. Many parts of the map are interlinked, so getting around is pretty easy despite the map feeling on the larger side for a 6v6 map. Lots of the action gets concentrated to hotspots around the map, which again helps with predictability as you're guaranteed gunfights if you're in and around these hotspots. And now the things I'm less keen on. First, some of the objective placements are really bad. For instance, one of the hardpoint locations is right in front of one of the key spawn locations. So it should be a guaranteed 60 seconds for whichever team currently holds this spawn. In Domination, Capture Point B is located right in the centre of the map, which is usually the case in Call of Duty games. But on Yamantau, it's not a good idea. When on the capture point, you can easily be targeted from just about every imaginable angle, so it's a nightmare to capture. If a team does manage to capture B, they will likely hold it for the rest of the game, as it is just too easy to defend. The map has lots of different levels and elevations, which can be an absolute pain for head glitches or flanking. The different elevations make the map unique in design, but most of the time I find that the change in elevation can be so annoying because players can be obscured. It's far too easy to flank around the map and use the mountain path to get to the other team's spawns. Most of the times teams will spawn at either end of the map, so flanking will almost always catch out a player or two. Thankfully, spawns do flip fairly easily, but this doesn't eliminate the annoyance of such a play occurring. Please get rid of the mountain route. To summarise, Yamantau is okay, as it's fairly predictable in the way that it plays, but the many levels, elevations and spawn flanking keeps this map from being a good one. When Season 3 began and I started to use the two new weapons, I enjoyed how different they felt from the rest of the guns in the SMG and sniper rifle categories. I think the PPSH-41 is great fun for standard matches, but isn't going to be used in league play matches as it's not as versatile as the likes of the AK-74U. My overall thoughts on the Swiss K31 before the patch was in 3 tiers. Without the Tiger Barrel and not going for headshots, I didn't like it at all. Without the Tiger Barrel and going for headshots, the Swiss K31 is great for target practice and is brilliant for improving your general aim. With the Tiger Barrel, the weapon is a complete beast. Diesel is a fun map to play in 6v6, but in my opinion should be taken out of the 3v3 rotation. Yamantau is okay, as it's fairly predictable, but it can get really annoying if players are abusing the elevation to head glitch or consistently keep flanking spawns using the mountain route. I'm really looking forward to Season 4 of Black Ops Cold War. Hopefully it brings some interesting maps and weapons, but until then, thanks for watching.